Imagine discovering that you've been a puppet your whole life, and you never knew who was pulling the strings. Sounds disturbing, doesn't it? Yet this is exactly what's happening when you live unconsciously, enslaved by your thoughts. Every random thought that pops up pulls a string. Every fear, every craving, every judgment moves you in a direction you didn't consciously choose. You think you're making decisions, but you're actually just reacting. Reacting to thoughts you didn't create, don't control, and often don't even notice. The ancient Buddhist masters understood this. They saw clearly that most people live their entire lives in a state of mental automation, controlled by conditioning, habit, and unconscious mental patterns. But they also discovered the way out: awareness. The moment you realize you are not the puppet, you are the one watching the puppet, everything changes. You cut the strings, you reclaim your power. And that journey begins right now. Part 1. The experiment that changes everything. Let me share something with you. A simple experiment that will reveal just how little control you have over your own mind. Right now, I want you to try something. For the next 10 seconds, decide in advance exactly what thought you're going to think. Not just the general topic, the specific thought, word for word, image by image. Plan it out. Then, when you're ready, think only that thought and nothing else. Ready? Begin. What happened? Did other thoughts intrude? Did your planned thought shift or morph into something else? Did you find yourself thinking about thinking? Most people discover something startling. We have almost no control over which thoughts arise in our minds. Sure, we can direct our attention, we can choose to think about something. But the specific thoughts, the random associations, the sudden memories, the uninvited worries, those arise on their own, like waves in the ocean. We don't create them, we just experience them. This isn't a failure on your part. This is simply how the mind works. 26 centuries ago, the Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree and observed his own mind with extraordinary precision. He noticed exactly what you just experienced. Thoughts arise by themselves, conditioned by countless factors: past experiences, present circumstances, sensory input, habits, emotions. In the Vitakkasanthana Sutta, the Buddha described the mind as being like a wild horse, untamed and reactive. Without training, it runs wherever it wants, pulled by desire, pushed by aversion, clouded by confusion. But here's where it gets interesting. The Buddha didn't say, "Stop all thoughts." He didn't say, "Control every thought that arises." Instead, he taught something far more profound. You are not your thoughts. This teaching, simple on the surface, revolutionary in practice, changes everything. Part 2. A Zen story: The Student and the Waterfall. There's a beautiful Zen story about a young monk who came to his master in deep frustration. "Master," he said, bowing low, "I cannot meditate. Every time I sit, my mind fills with thoughts, memories, plans, fantasies, fears. I try to stop them, but they just keep coming. What am I doing wrong?" The master smiled gently. "Come with me," he said. He led the young monk to a waterfall deep in the forest. The water cascaded powerfully over the rocks, constant and loud. "Tell me," the master said, "can you stop this waterfall from flowing?" The monk looked confused. "No, master, that's impossible." "Exactly," the master replied, "and yet the waterfall does not disturb the river. The water flows, crashes, and moves on. It does not cling to the rocks. It does not fight its own nature." The monk began to understand, but the master continued. "Your thoughts are like this waterfall. They arise because that is their nature. Trying to stop them is like trying to stop the waterfall with your bare hands, exhausting and futile. Then, "What should I do?" the monk asked. The master placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't stop the waterfall. You step back from it. You watch it. You recognize, I am not the waterfall. I am the awareness that perceives it." The young monk's eyes widened. For the first time, he felt a space open up inside him, a space between his awareness and the cascade of thoughts. "You are not your thoughts," the master said quietly. "You are the sky in which they appear and disappear. Clouds come and go, but the sky remains unchanged." This story contains the seed of liberation. When the monk stopped trying to control his thoughts and instead recognized that he was separate from them, everything shifted. He was no longer enslaved by every passing mental event. He gained the power to choose. Which thoughts deserve my attention? Which ones should I let pass by? This is not suppression. This is not denial. This is discernment, the ability to see thoughts clearly without being swept away by them. As the Buddha taught in the Dhammapada, we are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. Notice, he didn't say, we are our thoughts. He said we are what we choose to think, what we give our energy and belief to. Part 3. Modern Life and the Crisis of the Mind. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah is a 34-year-old marketing manager living in a busy city. She's smart, capable, and by all external measures, successful. But inside, she's drowning. Every morning, Sarah wakes up and immediately reaches for her phone. Before she's even fully conscious, she's scrolling. News headlines, social media updates, work emails. Within minutes, her mind is flooded with thoughts. The world is falling apart. I'm not doing enough. Why does everyone else seem so happy? I need to respond to that email. I'm already behind. By the time she gets out of bed, Sarah's emotional state is already determined, not by her own choices, but by the content she consumed in those first vulnerable moments. Throughout the day, it continues. A notification buzzes. A thought arises. What if it's something urgent? She checks. It's not. But now her focus is broken. A colleague comments. A thought arises. Did they mean that as criticism? Her mood shifts. She sees an advertisement. A thought arises. I need that to be happy. By evening, Sarah feels exhausted, anxious, and empty, and she doesn't understand why. After all, she's just thinking, just living a normal modern life. But here's what Sarah doesn't realize. She has surrendered control of her mind to external forces. Sarah's struggle is not unique. It's the struggle of millions. We live in an age of unprecedented mental manipulation. Every app, every advertisement, every headline is engineered to capture your attention, trigger your emotions, and shape your thoughts. And if you believe you are your thoughts, you have no defense. You scroll, a thought of inadequacy arises, and you believe it. You see a news story, a thought of fear arises, and you believe it. You have a random worry, and you believe it. This is what the Buddha called papancha, mental proliferation. One thought triggers another, then another, until you're lost in a storm of mental reactivity, far removed from reality. The Buddha warned, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. But if you can't control what thoughts arise, and you identify completely with those thoughts, then you are not the master of your mind. You are its slave. Part 4. Mastery or enslavement, the only two paths. There comes a moment in every person's life, sometimes many moments, when this question becomes urgent. Am I living my life, or is my mind living it for me? This is not an abstract philosophical question. This is intensely practical. Because when you are enslaved by your mind, your life becomes chaotic, reactive, unstable. You are emotionally dependent on external circumstances, mentally scattered, unable to focus or find peace, spiritually disconnected, feeling like a stranger to yourself. You become like a leaf in the wind, tossed wherever your thoughts blow you. But the Buddha taught there is another way. The path of mastery. Mastery doesn't mean controlling every thought. That's impossible, and trying will only create more suffering. Mastery means recognizing that you are not your thoughts, and from that recognition, gaining the power to choose your relationship with them. Let me say that again, because it's crucial. You don't have to control your thoughts. You only have to choose whether to believe them, follow them, and give them power. Think of it this way. Imagine your mind is a busy street. Thoughts are like cars passing by, some fast, some slow, some loud, some quiet. You are standing on the sidewalk. When you are enslaved by your mind, you jump into every car that passes. A fearful thought speeds by, and you jump in. An angry thought honks, and you jump in. A craving pulls up, and you jump in. Before you know it, you've been carried far from where you wanted to go. But when you master your mind, you remain on the sidewalk. You watch the cars pass. Some you recognize. Ah, there's my old friend anxiety. Some you note. That's an interesting thought. Some you ignore entirely. You choose which car to get into, if any. This is freedom. The Buddha illustrated this beautifully with the parable of the two arrows. He said, when an untrained person experiences pain, they are struck by two arrows. The first arrow is the pain itself, unavoidable, part of life. The second arrow is their reaction to the pain, the mental suffering they create by thinking, why me? This is unbearable. I can't handle this. The trained mind experiences only the first arrow. The same is true with thoughts. The first arrow is the thought arising, often unavoidable. The second arrow is believing it, identifying with it, letting it dictate your emotions and actions. You cannot always prevent the first arrow, but you can absolutely avoid the second. Part 5. The practice. How to break free. Step 1. Recognize the gap. The first and most important practice is simply this. Notice when a thought arises, not to judge it, not to push it away, just to notice. A thought is here. This simple act creates a gap, a space between you and the thought. In that gap, you are no longer fused with the thought. You are the observer of it. Try it now. Notice whatever thought is in your mind. Now say to yourself silently, I am aware of this thought. Did you feel it? That slight shift. That's the gap. That gap is the birthplace of freedom. Step 2. Label without judgment. The Buddha taught a practice called sati, mindfulness. One aspect of mindfulness is gentle labeling. When a thought arises, you can mentally note it. Worrying, planning, remembering, judging. You're not trying to stop the thought. You're simply naming it, which helps you see it clearly without being swept into it. This is like watching weather patterns instead of being caught in the storm. Step 3. Ask the liberating question. Here's a question that can transform your relationship with your mind. Is this thought true? And is it helpful? Not every thought deserves your belief. Not every thought deserves your energy. A thought says, I'm not good enough. Is that true? Is it helpful? A thought says, everyone is judging me. Is that true? Is it helpful? A thought says, I need to check my phone right now. Is that true? Is it helpful? Most thoughts, when examined, reveal themselves to be either distortions or distractions. You don't have to fight them, you just have to see them clearly. Step 4. Return to the breath. The breath is your anchor, always available, always present. When you notice you've been swept away by thoughts, gently return your attention to your breathing. In, out. In, out. The breath doesn't argue, it doesn't worry, it simply is. In the words of the Buddha, breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. This isn't about emptying the mind. It's about returning, again and again, to the one place where you have true power, this moment. Part 6. Sarah's transformation. When awareness dawns. Remember Sarah? One evening, after another exhausting day of mental chaos, Sarah came across a teaching about meditation. Skeptical but desperate, she decided to try. She sat down, closed her eyes, and immediately her mind exploded with thoughts. This is stupid. I'm doing it wrong. I should be working. What's for dinner? But then she remembered something from the teaching. You are not your thoughts. For the first time, instead of believing the thoughts or fighting them, she just watched. There's a thought that I'm doing this wrong. There's a thought about work. There's a thought about dinner. And in that simple recognition, something shifted. The thoughts didn't stop, but Sarah realized, I am the one watching these thoughts. I am not the thoughts themselves. It was like waking up from a dream. Over the following weeks, Sarah began to practice this awareness throughout her day. When anxiety arose, she noted, this is anxiety. It's a feeling, not the truth. When her phone buzzed, she paused. Do I need to check this now, or is this just a habitual reaction? When negative self-talk appeared, she asked, is this thought helpful, or is it just an old pattern? Slowly, Sarah's life began to change, not because her circumstances changed, but because her relationship with her mind changed. She was no longer a slave to every passing thought. She had become gradually the master of her own inner world. And with that mastery came peace. Part 7. The Ancient Wisdom for Modern Times. Why this teaching matters now more than ever. We live in a time of information overload, constant stimulation, and relentless mental noise. Our minds are battlegrounds, and we are often losing. But the Buddha's teaching offers a way out, not through escape, but through clarity. When you realize you are not your thoughts, you reclaim your power. You are no longer tossed by every headline, every notification, every random worry. You become like a mountain. Storms may rage around you, but you remain steady. In the Salatha Sutta, the Buddha said, the wise person, when touched by feelings of pleasure or pain, neither delights nor grieves, but remains equanimous. This equanimity isn't coldness, it's strength. It's the strength that comes from knowing, I am not my thoughts. I am the awareness in which thoughts arise. Please, if this message resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to Buddha Coha and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Let's spread this ancient wisdom to those who are struggling in the modern storm. Together, we can create a community of mindful, awakened hearts. Let me leave you with one final image. Imagine your mind is the sky, vast, open, boundless. Thoughts are clouds. Some are dark and heavy, some are light and fleeting, some obscure the sun, some drift by harmlessly. But no matter how many clouds appear, the sky is never damaged. The sky is never diminished. The sky simply allows the clouds to pass. You are the sky, not the clouds. You are the awareness, the spacious, luminous awareness in which all thoughts, feelings, and experiences arise and pass away. When you rest in this awareness, you are free, free from the tyranny of your thoughts, free from the manipulation of the world, free to live with clarity, compassion, and peace. This is the Buddha's gift to you, not a belief system, not a set of rules, but a direct pointing to your true nature, unchanging, unshakable, free. So the next time a thought arises, any thought, pause, notice it, smile gently, and remember, you are not your thoughts. You are so much more. If this teaching has touched your heart, please take a moment to subscribe to Buddha Coha. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment of peace and wisdom. And remember, the path to freedom doesn't require perfection. It only requires practice. One breath, one moment, one conscious choice at a time. May you be peaceful. May you be free. May you know the truth of who you really are. Thank you for walking this path with me. Until next time.